Okay, everyone, my name is Benjamin, and today we're going to be talking about Virginia and its election this November, which has technically already started because of this whole thing called, what was it called again? Oh yeah, early voting. No, I'm being sarcastic. I voted early, like on the very first day they opened it, so in all honesty, I'm not going to be too much of a joker when it comes to that. Before we get into it, likes, comments, subscriptions, they always do help, and I greatly appreciate it. Likes and comments, of course, help feed the algorithm, promote my videos, all that good stuff. I'd also appreciate sharing it. Hey, let's get the channel out there. And subscribe if you haven't already, because, hey, I'd love to reach 1,000 by the end of the year, and more subscriptions means more opportunity for me to post content, because if I get monetized, hey, if I can get enough off of this, I'll probably be posting a lot more than my schedule currently allows me. Who knows? Anyway, we're talking about Virginia's election. Now, this is the map roughly from the 2017 election for governor, in which Governor Blackface defeated Ed Gillespie by a healthy margin. It was like 53-44. Now, this year, I've read some very interesting comments from quite a few places. One of those very interesting comments was, I was reading something on 538 where some of their analysts are saying that some of the signs we're seeing right now are eerily similar to 2009 and 2010, which was massive Republican wave year. But the funny thing is, polling doesn't seem to indicate that. In fact, polling seems to indicate not quite. Now, I'm willing to, if polls again understate Republican support in general, I'm willing to bet that that's just going to be a trend going forward, and I'll take polling with a grain of salt for the most part. We'll see if that happens. I'm not ready to buy into it just yet, okay? But I think maybe part of that has to do with the way they categorize independents, but we'll see if that's a trend that holds, of course. Right now, McAuliffe leads by about 3.5% if you average polls out, depending on how you do it. Where he's in the upper 40s, and Youngkin is sitting about 3 points behind that, somewhere in the mid 40s. So we're talking like 47 to 44, stuff like that. That's about what the average is. Now, what we could see is that a lot of that undecided vote is from Northern Virginia, which is a very, very blue region. But who knows? And who knows if that will break towards McAuliffe. Especially with the stuff that the Youngkin campaign is trying to hit on in those areas, which, particularly in, say, Loudoun County, which is a very important county, one of the things he's hitting on is definitely something that's going to get a good chunk of the voter base riled up. And that's that CRT stuff. I'm not going to touch into it because I haven't read enough about it to know exactly how it works, or whether or not it's what its opponents say it is, nor can I confirm that it's what its proponents say it is. So I'm not going to wade into those waters because I don't think that's the right thing for me to do, especially if I'm trying to be an impartial observer. But there is opportunity for Youngkin to grow the Republican base in areas that have become more conservative, or more accurately, more likely to vote for Republicans. He's almost maxed out voting the Republican voter base in the Appalachian region, all the way from Highland County, you know, basically along the I-81 corridor right here. And basically, if you want to know what the I-81 corridor is, draw a line from Bristol all the way through the Roanoke area, then up along here, through Buena Vista and a few of the other places, past Harrisonburg, and up through Winchester. So that's I-81, right? It kind of does this number. And that's big for the Republicans. You may say, well, there's not a ton of people. There isn't. But realistically, there's 2 congressional districts worth of votes here. And that is enough to offset 2 very heavily Democratic congressional districts, if you're thinking about it from a pure math standpoint, if you can get them to turn out. Because there are the number of voters there to offset those districts. The difference is rural areas in Virginia, they don't turn out nearly as much as, say, the urban areas. Sort of. Turnout figures are pretty bad, honestly. And then you have the 1st, which is another pretty solid conservative district. So he needs to drive up numbers there. There's still room for him to grow in this kind of no man's land. Not really in the Richmond area, except maybe this county. He really just needs to mitigate losses there. But north of the James River, more accurately. Or not the James, but I believe it's I want to say this one's the Rappahannock River. North of that and south of Nova, again, that's area for him to grow. Another area to grow is Southside Virginia, which is basically this blob from the I-81 corridor, just past the Blue Ridge foothills, and down towards the Richmond burbs. And then you've got the Tidewater area, which is very competitive. So we're talking Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton Roads, Williamsburg, Jamestown, right? And the Eastern Shore is kind of part of that. Nova, he really just has to mitigate losses. McAuliffe, on the other hand, really, he just needs to make sure his base turns out. And maybe win a decent amount of swing voters in the Commonwealth. Because he does that, he should be able to win. But the Youngkin campaign focused on swing voters, independents, and even soft Democrats first, and now is focusing on driving up the Republican base. And I've got some opinions about McAuliffe. I think he's trying too hard to turn out the Bernie Sanders crowd, or not even the Bernie Sanders crowd. I think he's trying too hard to appeal to the liberals in the Commonwealth, not necessarily the swing voters. And that could hurt him, because the swing voters in Virginia do make up enough of the population to actually matter. And some of the ads I've seen, he's not campaigning the way I would have expected him to, based off of how tough of a fight he had to put up in 2013 to win that election against Ed Gillespie. Now, I'd argue that Gillespie probably should have won that election, but the Libertarian candidate that year was extremely good and pulled 6% of the vote. In a race that Gillespie only lost by, I think, a few thousand votes. Yeah, that kind of matters. Now, that's not saying all Libertarian voters would have voted for Gillespie, but let's be honest here, most hardcore Libertarians, their second choice is probably going to be the Republican, because Libertarians, their primary focuses are, generally speaking, the economy. And their second choice is typically either going to be drugs or guns. and most will have guns as kind of being a tie break. And a good libertarian is going to look at the Democrats, look at their position on guns, and say, have a nice day. Walk right over to the Republican booth and start chit-chatting. Because they think, basically it's a situation where most libertarians, myself included, think it's easier to convince Republicans on issues like criminal justice issues, drugs, a few other things like that, than it is to convince Democrats about guns and taxes and all the others, and regulation and government spending and all the other stuff. So, yeah. Now, we are in a year where the Republicans should, in theory, have the momentum. It's been that way in the past. 2013, Republicans almost flipped Virginia in the gubernatorial race. 2009, the Republicans did flip the governor's mansion, and they did it by a not insignificant margin. It was like a 58-42 election. That's how not insignificant it was. And I do believe Virginia is winnable for the Republicans if they put up, if they do the right things in the campaign. And the problem is, I'm not sure the state party, the Commonwealth Party, 100% understands that. And you have to fight for the Northern Virginia suburbs. You have to fight for Virginia Beach and the Tidewater area. And the truth is, the Virginia Republicans are going to have to face reality. You can't win with the traditional voter base. And I'm trying to find the best way to phrase this. But Virginia Republicans, number one, especially in Tidewater and Nova, need to start reaching out towards more. They need to reach out towards African Americans, Hispanics, and really need to, prove that they are capable of delivering on the issues that those groups care about, which are actually very similar issues to what white voters in the Commonwealth are concerned about. Everybody's concerned about, putting food on the table. As it's sometimes called, everybody cares about kitchen table issues. How do I put food on the table? How are my kids going to be educated? Cost of housing. All of this stuff. And the Republicans have to prove and put into effect a plan that makes those better for the little guy. And they have to be able to do it. And they can't just say, oh, we've got a plan, this is what our plan is, vote for us. No, they have to say, this is the plan, this is how it will benefit you. You don't like your rent being so high? Well, here, we'll allow for more competition in the rental property market, and that should help drive down prices, which means you pay less in rent, you keep more of your income. Maybe you can buy your kid a better Christmas present. Maybe you can afford to send your kid to a private school. That'll benefit them in education, meaning their kids will have a better chance of going to college, getting a better job, and improving through the generations. All that sort of thing. And that's what the Republicans need to focus on. So, if they can do that, can flip Virginia Beach. I'm a little skeptical that some of these counties are flippable. I could see a scenario where maybe this county is flippable. but I'm not going to say it. I could see Prince William and Loudoun becoming not necessarily competitive, Loudoun competitive, I'll put it there. But certainly not overwhelming Democratic margins. I could see the Eastern Shore continuing to trend towards the Republicans. Truth is, it's an area that probably should be conservative anyway. And the reason why I say that is because it's very rural, it's very low population, and I just don't really... I think the only reason it might not be blue is that there's probably a lot of well-to-do people in government who decided to retire out here, who were Democrats beforehand, and yeah. I can maybe see this county flipping back. Out here in the New River Valley, city of Radford, I can actually see that flipping, and I have some inside baseball on that situation. I don't want to talk about the inside baseball, I know, but basically, I'm pretty confident that City of Radford is actually something that it could go red this year. And part of that is because of the state legislative district they're in. By state legislative, I'm talking, of course, about the House of Delegates lower chamber in Virginia's General Assembly. And that's because their delegate is a drunk driver, and they're going to use that because McAuliffe has endorsed the drunk driver, and they're going to use the local Republican parties using that to hammer home the point that Democrats have no scruples. Montgomery County, which has Blacksburg, aka Virginia Tech, there's no way in hell that's flippable these days. Christiansburg has grown a little bit too much, bringing in a lot of people from, Northern Virginia and all that other stuff. Great. It's actually good for the New River Valley that this part of the Commonwealth is actually growing in population. The only bad news is more to do, at least for the area, is more to do with the fact that the people that are coming in don't really fit in with the rest of the Appalachian culture, and they're going to have to, At the same time, Blacksburg and Christiansburg are more urban than the rest of the area. Same with Radford, to be honest with you. But it's kind of one of those situations where it's like it's really hard to explain to people who don't haven't experienced something like this, where you have a bunch of people come in to a community and then demand that they be treated as if they own the place. Ask a Texan how they feel about Californians moving to Texas, and they can sympathize with this. They can empathize with it more accurately and basically say they're coming in here and bringing their politics with them, is the line that I always hear. Basically, they're saying, we were doing fine. We had policies that promoted them coming here, and now they're trying to bring what they're fleeing from, because they always hear people from California going, well, we just left California because it got too expensive to continue living there. Taxes were too high, all that stuff. And then Texans will say, okay. And then they'll look at their car and see stickers for people who promise to increase taxes, increase regulation, basically turn Texas into California. Do you kind of get what I'm saying there? It's kind of like seeing, wait a second, you wanted to avoid paying taxes, you wanted the low cost of living, you wanted this, that, and the other thing, and now you're voting for what you were running from. It'd kind of be like a person leaving a socialist country and blaming socialism for forcing them out, and then voting for the Socialist Party. in the new country. If you kind of get it, like that's the best way I can explain. And of course, the people who live there think that it's live in the new place, think it's maniacally stupid for that person to continue doing so. But hey, that's the best way I can explain it. Is this race winnable for Youngkin? Absolutely. Is it an uphill battle? Absolutely. But it's possible. Right now, I have it as tilt Democratic simply because it should be a year the Republicans have momentum, and the Republicans are actually, from what I understand, focusing on turnout and promoting early voting and all the other stuff. Basically, and I heard it from Youngkin's mouth himself. He basically said, listen, these are the rules we have to play by. Instead of complaining about them, let's take advantage of it. And he didn't say that verbatim, but that was the message he was sending. Was instead of complaining about the rules, let's play by them. And let's take advantage of them. So, guess what? That's what they're trying to do. And we'll see how it turns out. Like I said, I do still expect Terry McAuliffe to win, but it's a lot more competitive than I expected it to be. Anyway, y'all have a very nice one, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.